The mining outpost floated like a tiny silver spark above the red world of Vora. From the surface, it looked like a lost star drifting across the thin clouds of the planet, but inside it was full of noise and movement. Machines hummed, air filters hissed, and voices of humans and aliens echoed through the narrow halls. The outpost was built by humans but shared with a few alien groups, all working together to mine the rare crystal fuel that powered faster-than-light engines. It was one of the few places in the galaxy where humans and aliens lived under the same roof. Tension was common, but the work was too important for arguments. Among the humans was Ryan, a young technician who had spent 4 years on the outer frontier. He was known for his calm attitude and quiet humor. He fixed anything from power relays to damaged drones and often joked that he talked more to machines than to people. Yet he was liked by the crew because he never lost his temper, even when things went wrong. Every day began the same way for him. The loud alarm at 600 hours, the sound of the air scrubbers warming up, a cup of hot protein mix that tasted nothing like coffee but kept him awake. Then came the daily assignment from the central console. Most days it was the same list of small tasks. Replace coolant lines, recalibrate the magnetic locks, check the shield emitters. But that morning was different. When Ryan looked at the assignment sheet, he saw a new partner listed beside his name. Her name was Lena, a Sereth engineer recently transferred from the outer fleet. Ryan had never met a Sereth before. He had seen a few around the station, tall figures with light gray skin and glowing silver eyes, but they rarely spoke to humans. He shrugged and grabbed his toolkit. A new partner was a new experience, and on the frontier, that was something to look forward to. The shield maintenance bay was quiet when he arrived. A faint hum came from the transparent panels that protected the outpost from cosmic radiation. Through the glass, the red planet swirled far below, its storms flashing like veins of fire. Ryan always liked this view. It reminded him that even though he was small in the grand scale of space, he was still part of something vast and important. He heard a soft metallic sound behind him. When he turned, he saw her. Lena was tall, almost his height, wearing a silver utility suit with thin glowing lines across the fabric. Her skin was smooth and pale gray, her eyes bright like polished metal. She carried a tool case much larger than his and moved with slow, precise steps. When she spoke, her voice was calm and even, almost like a machine but with a quiet grace to it. "You are the human called Ryan," she said. He smiled. "That's me. You must be Lena, right?" She nodded once. "We are assigned to recalibrate the outer shield nodes." "Good, let's get to it," he said cheerfully. Lena did not smile back. She simply walked to the nearest panel and began checking the data streams. Ryan followed her and tried to start a conversation. "So, how long have you been working in engineering?" he asked. 6 standard cycles, she replied without looking up. "That's impressive. You must be good at this." She gave a small pause. "Skill is expected? Failure is not tolerated." Ryan raised an eyebrow. He was not sure if she was serious or if that was her way of joking. The Sereth had a reputation for being serious and efficient, never wasting words or energy. It made sense for a species that had survived in harsh environments where emotion was considered a distraction. Still, Ryan could not help but try again. "I see. Well, I'll try not to fail in front of you then." This time she glanced at him, her eyes reflecting the light of the console. For a moment he thought he saw something like amusement in her gaze, but it was gone quickly. They worked in silence for a while. The hum of the shields filled the air, and Ryan found the rhythm comforting. Lena's hands moved quickly, adjusting controls and measuring outputs with perfect precision. She was efficient, but she never rushed. Every motion had purpose. After an hour, the main power conduit started to flicker. Ryan knelt beside it, opened the access panel, and began reconnecting the thermal couplers. Sparks flew as the system reactivated. "Careful," Lena said, her voice sharper this time. Ryan grinned. "Don't worry. I've done this 100 times." "That is the number before a mistake," she replied calmly. He laughed. "You sound like our safety officer." She tilted her head slightly. "Perhaps your safety officer is wise." Ryan tightened the last bolt and stood up. "Perhaps, but he also complains a lot." This time he was sure he saw her lips move slightly upward. It was not a full smile, but it was close. He decided it was progress. By the end of the day, they had recalibrated 4 shield nodes. The readings were perfect. Lena closed her console and said, "You are competent." "That is satisfactory," Ryan laughed again. Thanks. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me today. She looked at him with that same calm expression. Do humans value verbal praise more than results? He shrugged. Maybe. We like to know someone appreciates our effort. I see, she said thoughtfully. That is unusual. When their shift ended, they returned to the main corridor. The air was cooler there, filled with the faint smell of machine oil and ozone. The hallway lights dimmed slightly as the station switched to night cycle. Ryan stretched and rubbed his shoulder. Good work today, he said. You were great out there. She looked at him again. It was expected, Ryan chuckled. You really don't make small talk, do you? She blinked slowly. I do not understand that term. It means talking just to be friendly. Not for information. Lena seemed to think for a moment. Sereth do not exchange words without purpose. Speech consumes energy, he smiled. Well, you'll find humans waste a lot of energy talking. Her head tilted slightly again, a gesture he had started to recognize as curiosity. You find that acceptable? It's how we connect. Sometimes the best part of talking is not what we say, but how it makes us feel. Lena studied him silently, as if trying to understand something that could not be measured by logic. Interesting, she said finally. Ryan grinned. You'll get used to it. Over the next few days, they were assigned to more repairs together. At first, it was quiet work. Lena spoke only when necessary, and Ryan respected that. But slowly, the silence between them began to change. She started asking small questions about human customs. Why did humans smile so much? Why did they shake hands? Why did they use humor even during stressful situations? Ryan tried to explain each one in his own way. He told her that smiling was how humans showed warmth, that shaking hands was a sign of trust, that humor was a tool to make hard times easier. She listened to everything, always with the same focused expression. You shape emotions into words, she said one day. It is inefficient but powerful. That's one way to put it, Ryan replied. But it's part of who we are. By the end of the week, Ryan realized he looked forward to their shifts together. Her quiet presence had a calming effect. She never complained, never rushed, and always finished her work with perfect accuracy. When others grew frustrated with broken systems, she stayed composed. He began to admire that about her. One evening, they finished repairing a coolant line near the outer dome. The stars outside looked close enough to touch. The planet glowed below like a red sea, its storms swirling like fire. Ryan leaned against the glass, taking a moment to rest. Beautiful, isn't it? He said softly. Lena stood beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the stars. It is chaotic, she said. But beautiful, yes, Ryan smiled. You know, that's probably the first time I've heard you agree with me. She turned her head slightly toward him. Agreement is earned, he laughed quietly. Fair enough. The silence that followed was peaceful. For the first time since he came to the outpost, Ryan felt something different, a sense of understanding that didn't need many words. Two beings from different worlds, sharing the same quiet view of the universe. Lena broke the silence after a long pause. Your species values connection through emotion. Mine values survival through logic. Yet here we stand, observing beauty together. Ryan nodded. Maybe that's the point. We balance each other. She looked thoughtful. Balance, perhaps. As they walked back through the corridor, Ryan noticed that others stared at them. Humans usually kept distance from Sereth. There were still deep fears and old mistrust. But Ryan did not care much. To him, Lena was not just an alien. She was a person trying to understand. Before parting ways, he said, "See you tomorrow." She nodded. Yes, tomorrow. When she turned to leave, Ryan caught a glimpse of something different in her walk. It was not emotion exactly, but something close to comfort. He watched her disappear down the hall and thought about how strange the universe could be. A human and a Sereth working together above a red planet that had no life, yet finding a small spark of connection in the emptiness of space. That night, as Ryan lay in his bunk, he smiled to himself. He did not know what the next day would bring, but he was sure it would not be boring. Somewhere deep inside, he felt that his life on this outpost was about to change forever. The next morning, the mining outpost woke to the steady hum of machines and the soft glow of emergency lights dimming as the station switched to its active cycle. Ryan stretched in his bunk, feeling the faint vibration of the station moving through the thin orbit above Vora. Every day felt a little strange, so far from home, But the view of the red planet below always reminded him why he stayed. This world was harsh, unwelcoming, yet full of purpose. And now Lena would be part of that purpose, whether she liked it or not. As he walked through the corridor toward the shield bay, Ryan passed groups of human engineers and Seraph technicians, all murmuring about yesterday's progress. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with faint disapproval. Working closely with a Seraph was unusual, and a human who spent so much time near one was rarer still. When he arrived at the maintenance bay, he found Lena already there. She was standing near the observation dome, her hands crossed behind her back as she studied the red planet below. The morning light reflected on her silver eyes, giving her an almost ethereal appearance. "Good morning," Ryan said, keeping his tone light. She turned toward him slowly. "Good morning, human." There was a subtle shift in her posture, something almost like attention, and he noticed it immediately. Lena never used unnecessary movements. Every gesture had meaning. He carried his toolkit to the outer shield node, placing it down with a faint clang. "You ready for another long shift?" he asked. Her expression remained calm. "Ready. The shield arrays require attention." Ryan laughed quietly. "You make it sound so formal. I think you mean you are ready to spend another day fixing things with me." She paused, considering his words. "You may be correct." Clarification accepted. They moved together to the first shield node. Ryan noticed that Lena observed everything, not just the tools or the panels, but the way he moved, the way the cables connected, even the subtle hums in the system. She was meticulous, almost unnerving, but in a way that made him respect her more. As they worked, Ryan decided to test the waters of conversation. "You know," he began casually, "for someone so serious, you smile more than I expected." Lena looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the control panels. "I do not smile as your species understands it. I adjust facial muscles to indicate understanding or acknowledgement." "That's still a smile in my book," Ryan said with a grin. She made no response. Instead, she continued to recalibrate the outer panel. Ryan worked beside her for several minutes in silence, the quiet hum of the machinery filling the air. He liked these quiet moments. In silence, the universe seemed larger, and yet somehow they both belonged to it. Finally, he leaned back slightly and spoke. "You know, Lena, I think humans sometimes speak without reason, but I like it. It makes life less heavy." She paused, turning toward him. "You value verbal expression over efficiency?" "Sometimes," he replied, shrugging. "It's how we connect. It's how we understand each other." Lena regarded him for a long moment. Connection through words is inefficient. Energy is consumed without tangible output. "Yet you persist," Ryan smiled. "Yep, that's humans in a nutshell. Inefficient, persistent, and stubborn." Her gaze softened, or at least he thought it did. She tilted her head slightly, a motion he had started to interpret as curiosity. "Stubbornness is sometimes useful," she said. Encouraged by her response, Ryan leaned closer. "You know, I think I understand why humans joke so much. It's not just for fun. It's to make the hard parts easier. To remind ourselves that we can survive anything." Lena considered this. "Remarkable. We Seraph do not require amusement to endure hardship. Logic guides survival." "But you listen to me," Ryan said quietly. "You hear my jokes even if you don't laugh." She did not answer immediately. Instead, she turned her attention back to the console. "Your perspective is intriguing," she said finally. Ryan chuckled softly. The conversation felt like a small victory. Most humans would have been frustrated by her silence or by the way she dissected every word. But he enjoyed it. It was a challenge, and one he was beginning to understand. The next task required them to move outside to the shield perimeter. The station's robotic arms adjusted panels as Ryan and Lena floated above the red planet in zero gravity. The view was breathtaking. Below them, the planet glowed orange and red, its storms swirling in patterns like molten rivers. Above them, the endless black of space stretched into infinity. Ryan felt a sudden boldness, as if the quiet beauty of the universe gave him permission to speak freely. He turned toward Lena and smiled. "You'd make a cute wife." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. He expected confusion, maybe a sarcastic remark, perhaps even a mild scolding. Instead, Lena froze. Her silver eyes widened slightly, reflecting the swirling storms below. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the shield panels and the faint hiss of the life support system were the only sounds. Ryan felt a strange tension as if time had slowed. Finally, Lena spoke. Her voice was soft, calm, yet carried a weight that stunned him. If your kind values bonds that deeply, would you truly bind with one not of your world? Ryan blinked. Her words were precise, logical, yet carried a depth he had not expected. He opened his mouth to respond, but could not find the right words. His joke had become something much more serious. I don't know, he said finally. I didn't mean it like that. It was just a joke. She floated closer, her eyes fixed on his. Jokes are often masks for truth. You may not recognize it, but there is meaning in what you said. Ryan swallowed. Her calm, measured voice made him feel as if the universe had grown larger around him. The distance between their species suddenly seemed smaller. The words he had thought were lighthearted now carried significance. They finished the task in silence, both of them acutely aware of the unspoken tension. As they returned to the shield bay, Ryan tried to gather his thoughts. He had always joked to lighten moments to make work easier, but he had never thought that a simple comment could reach across worlds. The rest of the day passed in quiet work. Lena spoke only when necessary, but occasionally she would glance at him and he thought he saw a flicker of something almost human in her eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or contemplation. By evening, when the shift ended, Ryan found himself walking beside her to the main corridor. The station was dim, the lights casting long shadows across the walls. Few humans or Seraph were out this late, and the silence made the moment feel private. I didn't mean to overstep, he said cautiously. I didn't know it would mean anything to you. She regarded him steadily. You cannot know the weight of words without considering context. Your species assigns meaning to statements in ways we cannot predict. Ryan nodded slowly. Yeah, I get that now. I wanted to be honest, I guess. Her silver eyes met his. Honesty is rare. Your kind often hides true intent behind humor or caution. You reveal yourself despite the risk. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He had not expected a compliment, and yet somehow it felt heavier than any praise he had ever received. Thanks, he said quietly. When they reached the junction where their paths diverged, Lena paused. Tomorrow we continue recalibrating the outer nodes. Will you be prepared? He smiled a little shyly. I'll be there, and I'll try not to make any more questionable jokes. She tilted her head slightly. We shall see. As Lena walked away, Ryan watched her vanish into the dim corridor. He could not shake the feeling that their brief exchange had changed something. The outpost no longer felt ordinary. Something had shifted, a small spark between two beings from different worlds, a connection that was quiet but undeniable. Ryan returned to his quarters, thinking of her words. They were calm, measured, and yet they carried a depth he had never encountered. He realized that the frontier was not just about surviving in harsh environments, mining rare crystals, or avoiding disasters. It was about understanding others, even when they were entirely different from you. That night he stared at the red planet below and wondered what tomorrow would bring. He did not know if Lena would ever see him as anything more than a human she worked with. But he felt certain that the universe had a way of rewarding honesty, courage, and the willingness to take risks, even in words. And somewhere deep inside, Ryan knew that this bond, fragile as it was, could grow into something powerful. The stars outside glimmered, cold and distant, but inside the outpost, a quiet warmth began to grow. Two beings, separated by species, culture, and logic, had taken the first small step toward understanding each other. The outpost never slept, though its corridors often felt empty at night. Ryan moved quietly, carrying a new set of repair tools to the outer shield nodes. The hum of machinery followed him, blending with the soft vibrations of the station as it rotated above Vora. Each step he took echoed faintly against the metal walls. He paused at the observation deck, the usual spot where he liked to see the red planet swirl below. Today the storms glowed brighter than usual, painting the surface in shades of fire and rust. He leaned against the glass and let the sight calm his nerves. Ryan. He turned to see Lena standing nearby. Her silver eyes reflected the distant glow of Vora's storms. She wore her utility suit, perfectly fitted and practical, as always. Morning, he said with a small smile. You were expected at the outer nodes 15 cycles ago, she replied, her voice calm yet carrying a subtle note of concern. I was finishing up a minor repair. No harm done, Ryan said casually, though he felt a faint tension under her gaze. She moved past him, heading toward the docking platform. Ryan followed. Despite her precise movements, she seemed aware of every detail of the station, noting what humans often ignored. He had started to admire this about her. As they worked together that day, Ryan noticed the whispers among the other humans and Sereth crew. A few humans stared openly, shaking their heads or frowning. Others whispered quietly among themselves. The Sereth engineers were no less curious. Some watched with a neutral expression, others with what Ryan could only describe as judgment. It had become clear to him that their small exchange the day before, the joke he had meant to be lighthearted, had stirred more than he had expected. The conversation he thought was private had somehow traveled, and opinions had formed. Ryan tried not to let it bother him. Lena had not scolded him. She had responded with calm curiosity, and for him that was all that mattered. Yet he could not ignore the tension in the air, the unspoken observation of every action they took together. They reached the shield perimeter. The robotic arms hovered near them, ready to assist with any heavy panels. Ryan floated closer to Lena, adjusting a stabilizer with practiced ease. "You move with confidence," Lena said, her voice calm but attentive. "Humans are often reckless in low-gravity environments. You are not." "Thanks," Ryan replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I've had practice. Besides, recklessness usually gets expensive fast on this station." She observed him silently for a moment. "You value caution, yet you engage in humor that risks misunderstanding. That is contradictory." Ryan laughed softly. "Maybe, but life is unpredictable. Sometimes humor helps us survive it." Lena floated closer to the shield node, adjusting a conduit. "You speak of survival and humor as if they are connected. For humans, is this necessary?" "Not necessary exactly," he said, twisting a wire into place. "It's how we make the hard parts lighter. We use humor to remind ourselves that the universe is big and strange, but we can still manage." She considered this. "Interesting. Efficiency would dictate focus without distraction, yet your species uses distraction as a tool." Ryan grinned. "Exactly. Sometimes the best tools are the ones that don't make sense at first." The morning passed and the repairs continued. Ryan noticed Lena starting to ask small questions, not about engineering but about human culture. She asked why humans celebrated birthdays, why they formed teams that were sometimes more about companionship than necessity, and why they smiled even in stressful conditions. He answered each question patiently. "We celebrate birthdays because it reminds us of time, of life we've experienced," he explained. "Teams are about trust, cooperation, and support. Smiling helps show we care and makes moments less heavy." She listened intently, her eyes reflecting the light of the station's panels. "This is illogical yet powerful. You communicate value through non-tangible methods." "That's humans for you," he said with a grin. "Sometimes we make no sense at all." As the afternoon shift began, a minor alert sounded. A small meteor had grazed the outer shield, leaving one node unstable. Ryan and Lena floated quickly to assess the damage. While repairing the node, Ryan felt a sudden shift in Lena's behavior. She was faster, more precise, almost urgent in her movements. "You are tense," he said, noticing her focus. "Correct," she replied. "A damaged node risks failure of the perimeter. We must respond immediately." Ryan nodded. He admired her dedication. Humans often panicked under pressure, but Lena remained calm, methodical, and unwavering. By evening, the repairs were complete. Both floated back toward the station's main corridor, exhausted but satisfied. Lena's calm had subtly eased the tension he had felt all day. As they passed the observation dome, Ryan hesitated. The planet below glowed red and gold under the storm's fading light. He turned toward Lena, curiosity and courage mixing within him. "About yesterday," he began. "I didn't mean to overstep. I thought it was a harmless joke." She turned toward him, her silver eyes reflective. "Your words carry significance beyond your perception. You may believe them casual, yet they reveal intention. That is unusual for humans," Ryan smiled faintly. "I guess I just like being honest, even if it's risky." Her gaze softened, or at least he thought it did. "Honesty is rare but valuable. You demonstrate a willingness to expose truth without knowing its consequences." Ryan felt a warmth he had not expected. Her words, calm and precise, carried a weight heavier than any praise he had received. He nodded, grateful for her recognition. That evening, Ryan returned to his quarters thinking about the subtle shift he noticed in Lena. Her questions about human culture, her calm attention, and her careful observation made him realize that their bond was growing, even if it was quiet. Yet the tension between the humans and Sereth crew lingered. Rumors and whispers spread quickly, and while no one confronted them openly, the looks and murmurs were enough to remind Ryan that not everyone approved of their friendship. Some humans believed the Sereth were untrustworthy, while others feared that forming a bond with another species could weaken human influence on the outpost. For Lena, the scrutiny seemed less obvious. She remained focused, precise, and quiet. Yet Ryan could sense the subtle acknowledgement of the eyes on them, the unspoken awareness that their work together had drawn attention. Over the next several days, the whispers grew. Some humans openly avoided Ryan. A few Sereth engineers watched Lena more closely, their expressions unreadable. The Command Council sent reminders that interactions between species should be strictly professional. Ryan ignored most of it. He focused on work and on understanding Lena. He had learned that the quiet moments between tasks carried more meaning than he had imagined. A glance, a tilt of the head, the subtle softening of her eyes, all spoke volumes. One evening, while recalibrating the outer shield arrays, Lena asked him something he did not expect. "Ryan, why do humans form bonds that risk conflict?" He paused, considering her question. "Because bonds give life meaning. They give us courage, help us survive, and remind us that we are not alone. It is not always logical, but it is necessary." She regarded him thoughtfully. "Connection is survival, not by necessity, but by choice." "Intriguing," Ryan smiled faintly. "Exactly. You start to understand humans more every day." "I'm observing," she replied calmly. "Observation is a Sereth strength. Yet your explanations appeal to logic in unexpected ways." The repairs finished, and they floated back inside the station. The corridor lights reflected off the metal walls, casting long shadows. Ryan noticed other crew members giving them wide berths, whispers fading behind closed doors. "You know," Ryan said softly, "I think people will talk no matter what we do. The important part is that we understand each other." Lena tilted her head slightly. "Understanding is rare. Most species respond to observation with suspicion, not curiosity. You approach differently." Ryan shrugged. "I guess I've learned that curiosity is better than fear. Fear only stops progress. Curiosity can create bonds strong enough to last beyond space itself." Her eyes reflected his words. "You are, unlike most humans I have met. You value connection over caution. That is unusual," he smiled. "Maybe, but it feels right." As they parted ways that night, Ryan felt a quiet anticipation. The whispers and tension among the crew were not important. What mattered was the connection he had begun to form with Lena, subtle and slow, but growing stronger every day. Above the red planet, the station continued its orbit. Storms raged below, fierce and untamed. Inside, two beings from different worlds moved with care, curiosity, and courage. Their bond was new, fragile, and largely unspoken, but it was there. A bridge between species built on honesty, observation, and the willingness to reach beyond what was known. And though neither knew what the next day would bring, both sensed that their quiet understanding had already changed the rhythm of life on the outpost forever. The outpost had been quiet all day, with only the usual hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of radio communication. Ryan and Lena had spent hours recalibrating shield nodes along the outer perimeter. Their partnership had grown smoother, almost synchronized, as if each had learned the other's rhythm. Ryan admired her precision, her patience, and the calm way she handled every task. Lena, in turn, studied him closely, noting not only his skill but also the subtle ways he treated his team and the machines around him. As evening approached, the station's sensors began to pick up anomalies in the planet's atmosphere. At first they were minor, small energy spikes and a slight increase in meteor debris detected in orbit. Ryan glanced at the console, concerned. "Lena, have you seen this?" he asked. She floated beside him, her silver eyes scanning the readouts. "Yes, minor meteor activity. Unusual but not yet dangerous," Ryan frowned. "Minor today, catastrophic tomorrow." "That's my worry," she considered his words. "Precautionary measures should be increased. Yet our resources are limited. Prioritization is necessary." Ryan nodded. "Exactly. Let's make sure the shields are ready for the worst." They moved quickly through the corridors to the outer shield generators. checking and recalibrating panels as the warning signals on the consoles began to pulse more urgently. Ryan felt a tightness in his chest, a combination of excitement and anxiety. Space was unpredictable, and in moments like this, small errors could have huge consequences. As they worked, the outpost's alarm suddenly blared. Ryan's communicator crackled with the command council's urgent voice. All personnel, meteor storm approaching. Outer shield nodes may fail. Evacuate to secure zones immediately. Human and Seraph engineers are to remain separate unless authorized for emergency response. Ryan froze, exchanging a glance with Lena. She, as always, was calm, but attentive. Her eyes reflected focus, analysis, and understanding. "We can't leave the outer nodes unattended," he said quietly. She nodded. "Correct. The integrity of the station depends on their stabilization. Evacuation protocol is logical, but response to imminent failure is necessary." Ryan made a decision. "Then we stay and fix it together." She gave a subtle tilt of her head, acknowledgement. "Understood." As the meteor storm approached, the station shook violently. Panels rattled and the lights flickered. Ryan and Lena navigated the corridors carefully, floating in low gravity, tools in hand. Hearts racing but minds focused. They reached the first node and began repairs. Sparks flew, alarms echoed, and the walls vibrated with the force of debris striking the station's outer shields. "Keep the conduit stable," Lena commanded, her voice calm despite the chaos. Ryan adjusted the connector, sweat forming at his brow. "Almost there. Just a little longer." The next node was worse. A shard of rock had breached the outer shielding, leaving the generator partially exposed. Ryan floated closer to stabilize it, but a second alarm sounded. A life support breach nearby. He glanced at Lena, seeing the faint reflection of concern in her silver eyes. "We must prioritize this node," she said, steady and precise. "Failure here could compromise all others." Ryan nodded. "I've got you covered. Focus on the conduit." They worked side by side, hands moving in perfect synchronization. Lena's calm guidance balanced Ryan's human urgency. The station shook violently again, throwing them slightly off balance, but they corrected themselves with ease, continuing their repair work. Suddenly, a massive impact rocked the outpost. Ryan looked up and saw debris shifting dangerously near one of the outer conduits. He acted instinctively, moving toward Lena to protect her as a large panel began to tilt toward her. "Ryan," she called, though her voice remained steady. He grabbed the panel, pushing it away just in time. Lena floated to safety, her eyes briefly meeting his. For a moment, words were unnecessary. Their understanding and trust had grown so strong that action spoke louder than language. Once the immediate danger had passed, they resumed the repair work, ignoring the protocol to evacuate. Ryan's heart pounded, but he felt a strange clarity. Every action mattered, every decision carried weight, and yet together they were unstoppable. The storm intensified. Meteors struck the shields in rapid succession, some breaking apart on contact, others piercing the outer layers. Ryan and Lena worked with precision, repairing, reinforcing, and stabilizing each node. Sweat and grime coated Ryan's face beneath his helmet, and Lena's suit bore scratches from the debris, yet neither slowed. "Node 12 compromised." Ryan shouted over the alarms. "I see it. Stabilizing conduit now," Lena responded, her hands moving with unerring accuracy. As they finished securing Node 12, a massive explosion shook the station. Power flickered and the lights dimmed to a soft red. Ryan felt a sudden surge of panic. "We have to check the reactor," he yelled. They raced toward the reactor chamber, floating past corridors littered with small debris. The reactor's status console blinked red. Coolant lines were damaged, threatening to overheat the system. Ryan's mind worked quickly, analyzing the problem, recalling the repairs he had practiced countless times. Lena assessed the situation with equal focus. "Damage is extensive. Stabilization requires coordinated effort," Ryan nodded. "Let's do it together. You cover the primary conduits. I'll manage the coolant lines." They began the repair, working in near-perfect unison. Sparks flew, coolant hissed, and the station groaned under the storm's relentless force. Yet they remained focused, trusting each other completely. At one point, a falling panel struck Lena's leg, pinning her momentarily. Ryan reacted instantly, moving toward her, lifting the debris with all his strength. She floated free, checking her equipment quickly, and then returned to work without hesitation. "You're brave," she said quietly, her voice calm despite the close call. "And you're remarkable," Ryan replied. "I couldn't do this without you." Hours seemed to pass in minutes as they stabilized the reactor and repaired the remaining nodes. The storm raged outside, meteors crashing against the outer shields. But inside the station, Ryan and Lena moved with a strange grace, their teamwork a force stronger than the storm itself. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the alarms quieted, the outer shields held, the reactor stabilized, and the station's systems returned to normal. Ryan and Lena floated in the reactor chamber, exhausted but triumphant. "Station is secure," Lena said calmly. Ryan leaned back against the wall, breathing heavily. "We did it. We actually did it." She turned her eyes toward him. "Our cooperation prevented catastrophic failure. That is satisfactory." Ryan smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. "Satisfactory doesn't even cover it. We saved the station together." As they floated toward the central corridor, the command council's voice crackled over the intercom. "Report to main chamber immediately. Unauthorized action during emergency must be explained." Ryan glanced at Lena, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Do not fear consequences," she said softly. "We acted to preserve life. That is justification enough." They entered the main chamber together. The council, composed of both human and Seraph leaders, awaited them. Faces were tense, some scowling, others observing silently. "Ryan, Lena," one of the senior officers began, "you ignored evacuation protocol. You acted against direct orders. Explain yourselves." Ryan stepped forward, his voice steady. The outer nodes were at risk. The station could have failed. We stayed to protect it and everyone on board. I accept responsibility for the decision to stay. Lena's silver eyes met the council's. If loyalty to life is considered defiance, then your rules fail their purpose. Preservation of life is the highest directive. Our actions adhered to that principle. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, humans and Seraph alike considered the logic in her words. The room had expected excuses or hesitation, but what they heard was truth. Courage and reason joined together. One of the council members, a human engineer, finally spoke. "You are correct. The station survived because of your decision. Discipline is important, but life is more important. We acknowledge your actions." Another Seraph officer added, "Your cooperation demonstrates the potential for unity beyond species. This outcome cannot be ignored." Ryan exhaled, relief washing over him. Lena gave a subtle nod, her calm demeanor unchanged. Later, Ryan and Lena returned to the observation deck. The storms on Vora had calmed, leaving the planet glowing softly beneath them. Silence surrounded the station, comforting and familiar. "You were remarkable today," Ryan said quietly. "I've never seen anyone handle danger like that, not human, not Seraph." Lena's silver eyes met his. "And you were courageous. You acted without hesitation to preserve life." "That is commendable," Ryan smiled faintly. "We made a good team." "Yes," she replied, her tone calm but with a subtle warmth. "A strong team." Ryan looked out at the red planet below. The storm had passed, but he felt a new kind of awareness. Danger had revealed truth, and in truth they had found trust, respect, and connection. Above the chaos of space, two beings from different worlds had faced disaster together. They had discovered that courage, empathy, and unity were more powerful than any protocol, more vital than any command. And in that quiet moment, Ryan realized that this bond, quiet, unspoken, and strong, was something far greater than he had ever imagined. The battle was over, but the stars still burned with the light of broken ships. The orbit of Dalos was filled with wreckage drifting like silent ghosts. Human and Seren workers floated in their suits, gathering pieces, helping the wounded and sending damaged crafts to the repair bays. Ryan stood on the viewing deck, his eyes tired but full of relief. The base had survived. Against all odds, the mixed team of humans and Seren had pushed back the enemy fleet. He could still hear the echo of explosions in his mind, the flash of light when their shields had nearly failed, and the calm voice of Tira giving commands when everyone else was panicking. Now, quiet had returned. Only the hum of machines and the faint voices on the comms filled the air. Ryan leaned against the glass wall, watching the blue curve of Dalos below. The planet looked peaceful, as if it did not care about war or loss. Behind him, the sound of soft footsteps echoed. Tira approached, her silver eyes reflecting the light from the stars. Her uniform was scorched at the shoulder, and there was a thin cut across her arm, but she did not seem to notice. Serene minds focused on the mission more than pain. "You should rest," Ryan said. His voice was gentle, though his own face showed exhaustion. "You have been awake for almost 2 days. I could say the same to you," Tira replied. Her tone was calm, yet there was something new in it, something that sounded almost human. "We have both earned rest. But I believe we have something more important to do first." Ryan looked at her, curious. "What do you mean?" "The Galactic Union needs to understand what happened here," Tira said. "They need to know what humans did today." Ryan gave a small smile. "They will get the battle report soon enough." Tira shook her head. "Not just the battle report. They must understand why we won. They must understand what your people brought to us." He tilted his head. "And what did we bring?" She met his gaze steadily. "Heart, emotion, the ability to act when logic says there is no hope. You risked everything to save lives that were not even your own. Seren logic would have told us to retreat. Human instinct told us to fight. That instinct saved everyone here." Ryan did not know what to say. He scratched his neck awkwardly and looked out the window again. "I just did what I had to. Anyone else would have done the same." "No," Tira said firmly. "Not anyone, you did. You and the others who follow the same strange, reckless courage. The Union needs to see that." Her words carried weight, and Ryan could see she was serious. He sighed softly, then nodded. "All right, then let's tell them." Hours later, the command center came alive again. Technicians from both species gathered around the main communication terminal. The long-range transmitter was damaged during the battle, but the engineers had managed to restore a single broadcast channel. It would be enough to send one message to the Union Council. Tira stood at the front, her silver hair tied back, her posture perfectly straight. Ryan stood beside her, his uniform wrinkled and stained with oil. Around them, the humans and Seren watched in silence. The recording light blinked. "This is Tira of the Seren Science Corps," she began. Her voice was calm, clear, and steady. "And with me is Ryan, chief engineer of the human contingent on Delos Station. We send this message after the Battle of Delos Orbit. The enemy has been driven away. We stand alive because of the cooperation between our two species." She paused, glancing at Ryan. He gave a small nod, encouraging her to continue. "When humans first arrived in the Union, many of us believed they were unstable. They act with emotion. They argue. They laugh in dangerous moments. They make jokes in times of fear. We did not understand this behavior. I did not understand it." A quiet murmur spread through the control room as everyone listened. "Then," Tira continued, "I met Ryan. He once said to me a phrase from his culture, 'You'd make a cute wife.' To me it was confusing. It sounded meaningless. But when I studied the meaning behind it, I found that it was not an insult or mockery. It was a way of showing trust and comfort through humor. It was a bridge between fear and friendship." She looked directly at the camera. "That same spirit, the ability to find warmth in danger, is what saved us. When our logic failed, the humans did not surrender. They found another path. They turned fear into courage. They turned despair into unity. This is the gift they bring to the galaxy." Ryan listened quietly. He did not expect her to bring up that old joke again, but now he saw how far it had traveled, how deep its meaning had become. Tira took a breath. "We, the Seren, have always believed logic is perfection, but logic cannot comfort the wounded. Logic cannot make allies out of strangers. Emotion can. Humanity showed us that emotion is not a weakness. It is a source of strength we had forgotten to value." She stepped back slightly. "I now understand why humans smile even in darkness. It is not denial. It is defiance. It is hope." The room was silent. Even the hum of the machines seemed to quiet down. Ryan cleared his throat and stepped forward. "I don't know how to make big speeches like that," he said, smiling softly. "But I'll say this. We humans mess up a lot. We're loud, we argue, we act before we think. But we care. We care so much that we'll fight until we can't move. If that makes us strange to the Union, then I'm fine with that." He looked into the camera. "The Union isn't perfect. None of us are. But if we start learning from each other instead of judging, we might just survive what's out there. Today we fought together. Tomorrow we can build something better together." Tira nodded once. End transmission. The light on the console blinked off. When the message reached the Union capital weeks later, it spread faster than any military report. News stations replayed Tira's speech countless times. Her calm words and Ryan's simple honesty touched millions. People quoted the phrase across every world, "You'd make a cute wife," not as a joke, but as a reminder of connection and understanding. On some planets, artists painted murals of humans and Sirian working side by side. On others, teachers used the story to explain cooperation between different cultures. Even the Union Council, known for its cold debates, paused to listen to the message more than once. In the months that followed, human technology and serene logic began to merge in new projects. Joint academies were built. Mixed crews served on exploration ships. The Delos defense became a turning point in history, not just for victory, but for unity. Back on Delos, life slowly returned to normal. The damaged sections of the base were repaired, the gardens restored, and the memorial walls filled with the names of the fallen. Ryan often walked through the engineering bay, helping new recruits learn the systems he had once built under pressure. One day, as he checked the new power regulators, he saw Tira standing near the viewport again. She was watching the sunrise over Delos, her hands folded behind her back. The golden light reflected off her pale skin, making her look almost human for a moment. Ryan walked over and stood beside her. "You still like watching the sunrise, huh?" "Yes," Tira said. "It is the closest thing to peace I can measure." Ryan smiled. "You sound more human every day." She turned to him. "And you sound more serene. You think before you speak now." He laughed quietly. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." They stood in silence for a while. Then Tira said softly, "I have received a message from the Union. They want me to lead a cultural exchange project. It will bring humans and Seren students together." "That's great," Ryan said. "You deserve it. I requested that you be assigned to it as well," she added. Ryan blinked. "You did?" "Yes," she said calmly. "You are a symbol of what that project represents." He chuckled. "I don't think I'm much of a symbol." Tira looked at him seriously. "You are wrong. You taught me what it means to trust someone different. That is worth more than logic can measure." For once, Ryan had no words. He looked out the window again, watching the sun rise higher. "You know," he said at last, smiling, "if I ever say something weird again, just remember it probably means I trust you." Tira nodded. "Then I will remember to trust you in return." Days turned into weeks, and the Delos base became peaceful once more. Ships came and went, carrying supplies, researchers, and new students from many worlds. The story of Ryan and Tira became something of a legend, told in classrooms, discussed in council meetings, and shared in small taverns across distant colonies. People said that the day a human joked and an alien replied with understanding was the day the Union truly became united. One evening, as the stars shimmered beyond the station, Ryan stood on the deck again. He could hear laughter from the dining hall, humans, Seren, and other species all sharing stories. The sound made him smile. Tira walked up beside him once more. "You are smiling again," she said. "Yeah," he replied. "Guess I can't help it." She looked at him thoughtfully. "When humans smile, it often means they are proud of something." "Maybe," Ryan said. "It just means I'm happy we're not alone anymore." Tira looked at the stars and nodded. "Then that is something worth smiling for." And for the first time, she smiled too. An awkward, almost human smile, but real. The stars above Delos burned brighter that night, as if the universe itself had paused to listen to the quiet laughter echoing through the station. It was the laughter of hope. The laughter that began with a simple joke and ended with a new chapter in galactic history.